Thank you very much for coming. Giovanni Bisignani is the former General Director and CEO of the International Air Transport Association, a post that he held until July 2011. During his time with the IATA, he set about modernizing the industry and steering it through a series of crippling global crises. In 2004, he introduced the Simplifying Business Initiative, which modernized the industry by moving to improve the customer service and reduce costs. He enhanced the travel experience by eliminating over 400 million paper tickets while introducing the self-kiosk and making online check-in possible. In 2011, he began working on his checkpoint of the future and got the approval of IATA members. It is now actually being implemented in London. His particular interest in the environment also led him to commit the industry to achieving carbon neutral growth by 2020 and to halve their carbon emissions by 2050. Mr. Bisignani is the former CEO of SM Logistics and Alitalia Airlines, as well as the former chairman of the Association for European Airlines. He currently serves on the board of Safran in France, Air Castle in the US, and NATS, which is the air traffic service in the UK. I'd like to start off talking a little bit about your experience. You took over IATA right after September 11th. Tell me, what were some of the major decisions you had to make when you arrived at IATA?
So the first thing was to accept the job. Because honestly, I knew I was quite familiar with IATA because during my time in Alitalia, I was in the board of IATA. And at that time, it was a bit dusty, didn't have the kind of speed that I used to do, coming especially from a company as GE. But when Leo Bali, the CEO of Delta, told me, Giovanni, we are in an emergency situation. All the US airlines were in Chapter 11. It was 2 weeks after September 11. And he told me, we will give you a license to change everything. You have to lead a revolution. So with those words and those images of September 11 with the Twin Towers, I thought it was my duty to accept the job. I love challenges and I love change. But the change that I had to do in IATA was really, really relevant. IATA is a strange animal, not very well known. It's a travel, many define IATA as a business association, travel agents. Yes, we have 100,000 travel agents around the world. But nobody knows that IATA is the biggest customer of any bank in the world. I handle $400 billion cash a year. IATA requires an audit, a safety audit called IOSA for the airlines. If you're not on the audit, you lose your membership. So we play a very, very important role. So in that moment, I thought it was my job to take the risk and start. Logically, from what do you start? The first thing is you have to have a team in place in order to achieve difficult targets. A great boss needs a great team. If no, he will never succeed. And the challenge was to transform an association, as I mentioned before, a dusty, old, bureaucratic, with no targets, in a vibrant association. I used to work for Jack Welch, and so I implemented exactly what I was doing in GE. Tough targets, assessment of the management team, A, B, and C. The C is out. Speed is very important. You can make some mistakes, but speed is more relevant. If you make the mistakes, you change. But if you lose time, it's a problem. The structure is basic. But once that I had a structure in place, I had to start in understanding how we could change relevant pieces of this association, of the airline industry. It's a wonderful business. We mentioned before, but there is one big problem. It's a wonderful business that doesn't make money. In a business that doesn't make money is in an emergency situation. Just some numbers, because numbers normally tell the story. This is an industry with $740 billion revenues, and we have a $19 billion profit a year. That means 2%. In order to have our shareholders happy, we would need at least $40 billion. And we never made that amount of money. The reasons? We are running the business in an effective way because the CEOs of the airline in this last year achieved great results, increased productivity 10% a year. And most impressive is, when I joined IATA in 2002, the airline business, the airline could break even with a fuel price of $25 per barrel. Now they're able to break even with a fuel at $125 per barrel. This gives you incredible the idea of what was the effort of airlines in order to succeed. On the other side, also IATA performed in an effective way. Simplifying the business, it's a simple word, but it's a very, very complicated project. We were handling 400 million tickets a year in over 120 countries. In many countries, you needed a piece of paper to buy your currency, to step in an airport, and so on. We had to change everything, and we had to change the legislation in over 25 countries because it was not legal. On the other side, IATA is the association of the airlines. We have big airlines, American Airlines, United, Delta, Lufthansa, 260 airlines representing roughly 90% of the total traffic, but we have also small airlines. Airline of Mongolia, airlines of North Korea, more small countries in Africa. So the challenge for me was not just to address the issue in solving the electronic ticketing, having just the big guys on board. My job to have the big and the small guys, and that was a big effort in order to make the system work. The system worked. We were able to achieve electronic ticketing and all the things that you started, self-service, kiosk, mobile check-in, e-freight, in 3 years' time. And this saved the industry that is going, as I mentioned before, through difficult moments, $105 billion in 10 years. How do you identify those? 105 billion are $50 billion from electronic ticketing and the related activities. $25 billion for saving with airport fees. IATA negotiates with the airports the fees that airline must pay, and $30 billion shortening the routes. We discussed with government how to shorten the route in order to spend less fuel, make the environment less impact on the environment, and make the trip shorter. Those kind of initial activities was a great event because really we gave the idea to our members that a big organization had changed, had the right team, and we could start addressing important issues for the passengers, but also for the profitability of the airlines.
What would you say was your most dangerous and risky moment during your decade of IATA?
I have speaking this morning with some of the colleagues, I said, the most interesting part of my job was meeting probably an incredible numbers of leaders of the world. All of them. Assad, Gaddafi, President Bush, President Obama, all around the world. And that's of great importance. And you really understand the person in a completely different way from what you read in the newspaper. But in terms of risk and challenges, some of my trips were really memorable. I give you one idea. I was mentioning before that my job was also to help small airlines. IATA has nothing to do with politics. We have airlines from all about the world. And when we had to implement the IOSA is an audit, a safety audit that we require to all the airlines in order to keep their membership. If they lose their membership, they're out of business, so it's important. And so during the process of making IOSA mandatory, I received a very special telephone call from the president of North Korea. In fact, IATA is the only organization that has more members than the United Nations. You will think, how is it? Because we have one member that the United Nations does not have, and this is Taiwan. So I received this call from the President of the Republic and said, Mr. Bisignani, we are a member of IATA since 30 years, but never never received a visit from IATA Director General. I said, if you invite me, I'll be very pleased and I'll try to help as I help all the airlines. It's normal for the IATA DG to arrive there flying on the national carrier. And so I told to my colleagues, next time that I'm in Beijing, I used to go there every month, let's arrange a trip to Guangzhou. And logically, I'll be flying with Air Koryo. The head of security of IATA came down to my office and said, Giovanni, you cannot go with Air Koryo because it's really risky. Nobody flies with Air Koryo. I said, look, I have to follow what is a tradition of the and of IATA. I arrived at Beijing airport. I had the station manager of Air Koryo waiting for me. We went up at a small VIP room. I always ask how many passengers are on board because it gives me the idea if the airline is making money. And he said, you know, there's not a lot of passengers on board our planes, but you will be 5. And the 5 was free from IATA, and we were not paid. And the other 2 were a former secretary, a political secretary of the party, very important person. And I saw in his bag a little pipe coming out. You know the captain's bag, the black one there. And I said to the station manager, what is this pipe? No, there's nothing of your own interest. I insisted a bit. Say, it's an oxygen bottle. An oxygen bottle? Yeah, you have to know that in our plane, we don't have oxygen. And I said, but why don't, if you told me I was coming with a bottle? I said, but no, I was telling you that we have no oxygen and we have problem with the pressurization, you would never fly with us. But we told to this gentleman, if there is an emergency, he will share the bottle. So we got on the plane. The plane was a Tupolev that had 48 years old. The inside was like a Swiss train. Velvet, a lot of tables, you know, those little tables there, wooden table of 5 kilos. I would say, we as IATA work hard in order to take 100 grams from the other plates or things like this, and we have, okay, we go there. Comes the captain and says, I would like to tell you that the plane is not pressurized. So when you are flying, you will start hearing, you know when you go on the train and the window is open? But it's not risky. It's not risky, nothing is risky. So we take off and we fly. First part, we flew very low, 4,000 meters. They had special attention from the Chinese because normally you fly a bit higher. It's the size altitude of a helicopter, flew all around. And after they said, would you like, we are going to land in 1 hour, would you like to come and see the cockpit? I said, it's better that I come down, I'm going to see it when it's landing because I don't want to distract the captain. It was incredible. The cockpit was a bit like a submarine because you had the pilot and the co-pilot. The 2 engines, the engines were on the tail, were handled by 2 engineers. They were doing like this and trying to match something like this. So the plane was doing practically like this. After there was a guy that was handling the telephone system like a submarine. And after there was another person there with a little bench. He said, who's this guy? Oh, he's very important. I said, who's the guy? And he was the security guy. I said, what's your role? My role is because when we land in Beijing, we keep the plane there for 5 hours. I said, 5 hours is very, very expensive. But no, I have to be sure that the crew doesn't disappear and escapes. So that was the goal. I arrived in Guangzhou. It was pouring rain. I was scared because we landed in an incredible thunderstorm. The minister comes and meets me. Mr. Bisignani, I'm very lucky because, you know, a crash with the Director General of IATA would not be very good for Air Koryo's reputation. I go to the Guangzhou after with the minister, and there was another person assisting me that was helping me with translating. And at a certain point, I see a group of people. I was quite curious because, you know, Guangzhou, there's not a lot of people that are there. And looking, and I said, probably I'm looking at the helicopter. I was a bit curious what's there. I said, could we stop? No, there's nothing of your interest. Let's stop. We stopped. I started looking. I was looking for a helicopter. helicopter. I said, what are you looking for? There's nothing of your interest. Why are you looking at? We just inaugurated the first traffic lights in Pontiac. And I said, and the traffic is zero. There's no traffic. That was something interesting. But on the other side, there's also other risky situations because IATA goes into a country before the war ends, 1 or 2 months. We were in Afghanistan, we're there, and unfortunately it's still over, but for example in Iraq, because we are the first to arrive and settle the air traffic control system in order to have that. And I thought that that was my most dangerous experience. I was assisted by the United Nations and so on. But instead, another funny story, and after we speak of less funny stories of serious stuff, but this gives you the idea of what kind of life you live being as the Director General of IATA. Another funny story happened to me in Lagos. Nigeria had one of the worst hull loss rate in the world. In fact, it was a disaster. I had discussed with the President of the Republic, we can handle this. We were there with a team, we made big improvement. I had to close 2 airlines because they were carrying very few passengers, but unfortunately they were carrying a lot of arms and a lot of drugs. So that was not a business that we normally accept in our association. And so at that moment, I was invited for a celebration of this event, the opening of IATA months later. I land in Lagos, big and very crowded city. And at that point, there's the minister who's a lady. Mrs. Ndaki comes there to receive the plane, but the plane doesn't stop where normally it stopped the plane. The plane has stopped before. And it comes out and she said, Giovanni, you know, we found a plot yesterday night to kill you. You know, having closed 2 airlines there, I did not have a lot of friends. But never mind, you will have a convoy for you, and it will be nice and safe. No problem. The first 2 days were okay. The last day, I had to go and have a meeting with the minister, and it was 8 or 9 blocks from the hotel. And the road was not open. They had not organized this. I said, no problem. It was this convoy, no problem. I go on this convoy there. After 10 minutes, I was absolutely scared. It was like being in, I don't know, in Beirut, in the middle of a battle. Everybody was machine guns all over. I said, that's done, I'm over. And I was thinking, this is the plot. The 2 guys that were not captured yesterday are the plots here. And then what was it? We were stuck in a traffic jam. So all the 4 convoys that were in front of ACTA went down from the cars, started to shoot with the machine guns in there to clear the jam. And everybody left their car. We remained there for 1 hour because it was a bit, these are funny stories. But it gives you an idea on what kind of situation you are involved when running a yacht.
What do you think needs to be done to improve the airline industry so that they can turn the corner and start making decisions now?
Look, if we make a self-assessment, honest self-assessment of the airline, I mentioned before that we are performing quite well. I give you the number on how we are able to break even now. Productivity has improved a lot, 10%. The passenger experience has improved. Safety is very high, the level of safety. On the other side, as a passenger, the value proposition is good because the fares have gone down enormously. So they're doing a great job. IATA has done a great job in saving money. But why we're not able to make money? You would say, my old boss, Jack Shepwell, would say, I would fire all the CEOs because if they don't have 4 or 5%, it's not an airline, it's a charity association. In fact, our numbers are more similar to a charity association than a business. But we have some big problems in running this. You know, immediately after the war, the Second World War, there was a famous, I would say, meeting of all the ministers of transport of the most important countries, the Chicago Convention. And at the end of the Chicago Convention, they set a certain number of rules, 1946, so quite old rules. One of those rules was, in order to fly from one country to another country, you need to have traffic rights granted. So you need an international agreement between 2 countries, ratified by the parliament that in order to fly from one country to another. Second milestone of the Chicago venture, ownership. An American airline has to be owned 51% by American shareholders, and the same for European. So those two pillars that in those times made sense, because Chicago venture said we have to pay attention. In order to have a plane flying over our country, we have to be sure that it's coming from a reliable country with whom we have friendship. That airline doesn't bring bombs. That was the reason of those, and it made sense. On the other side is ownership. We want to be sure that the owners of the airline are citizens of the country, because like this we can control them. You may understand that today, after so many years, this makes no sense. The industry has become the global village. Companies have consolidated around the world. You have major carriers, mega carriers, but you still have this issue of ownership. Yes, you have seen some consolidation that has been very useful in the United States. All the big airlines have consolidated. In Europe, the same. You have seen some consolidation between members of the European Union. But we need a real consolidation. And consolidation that we see in many other sectors. The mobile phones, it's one company. We want, and we still are pushing, to have the opportunity to be run this as a normal country. When you sell your product, you have to pay a tax, but you don't need a law that allows you to sell the product. Consolidation, you don't need a special, you are able to consolidate with another country without having any kind of permission. So we are a system that are living in our age, but our roots are old in the times. We have pushed a lot for this. And I personally made a great effort many years. In 2007, at that time, the president was President Bush Sr. And at that time, there was a big deal going on in the US, because there was a consolidation of and a restructuring of Delta that required presidential approval. And at that time, a very effective lady was the Minister of Transport in the US, Mary Peters. And so I explained to the Secretary that it would have been a great opportunity for President Bush to take this opportunity and change once forever those completely obsolete rules. Sign the agreement for Delta, make ownership a piece of history, make traffic rights something not anymore needed, open skies. I met President Bush, who was very kind, understood our issue, and he said, Giovanni, I think so that it's the right time. And it could have been also the right time for the United States, that has played a leadership role in building this industry, to regain a strong leadership in looking ahead in a different way. There was an agreement from the President, there was an agreement from the European Commission, because it was a negotiation between the European Commission and the US. Everything went okay. There was a meeting in Brussels, 2008. There was an agreement. After what happened, I don't know how, there was an information that leaked to the press saying that most probably consolidation would be possible, so despite of the merger. And there was a very important person in the United States that was at that time the chairman of a very important aviation committee of the parliament. His name is Oberstein. When he saw this issue of consolidation in open skies, he started to do a mess in the press, because he was strongly supporting the pilots that didn't want this kind of consolidation. And at the end, we did not achieve this issue. We achieved just friendly. We did not achieve the consolidation. So a US airline has to be owned by US citizens and cannot merge with another airline that is from another country. So we did not achieve that, but we achieved open skies. Means that you can fly from any city in Europe to any city in the United States. Now, so we just achieved 50%. But I believe if this this is essential to be able to run our business as a normal business. But there is one thing. I spoke of the good fact that airlines are doing in terms of efficiency and so on. But there is one thing. We are not good in handling capacity. There is too much capacity. Capacity is something that the industry, you cannot discuss of capacity between two airlines. You go to jail for antitrust reasons. So everybody has to handle its capacity as a unique case. But we have to be wise. We have to be wise as CEO, understanding if we put down capacity, we increase the load factor, and we are able to make money. But why it is important to make money? It's important to make money not just because we run a business, not just because our shareholders want to be rewarded for the investment they have made. It is a guarantee for the airline that the airline can invest, can buy new planes, can be more efficient. So this issue of the capacity is something really that still is a problem. One of the reasons of this capacity, because we are not just completely crazy, we are crazy, but there's always some proofs in this. This has been a problem a bit in Europe. Why? Because as you know now, in my times, when I was running Alitalia between 87 and 94, most of the airline was state-owned. So it was the government that was funding. There was not a big problem on the profitability because it was government money, and so it was more as public service than that. Now, most of the airlines are privately owned. There are still a certain number of airlines, especially in the Gulf, the big airlines in the Gulf, that are owned by the states. And logically, being owned by the states, you don't have the problem of the budget of the money because the state is a state. And so, when I was speaking with my friends in the Gulf, I was saying, you have to handle capacity in a different way. They say, Giovanni, we are doing what you have done 20 years ago. We are supported by the government and we're putting capacity. And that is one of the sins of our business. On the other side, there is a certain kind of reason because when the Gulf airline put capacity in Europe, the European airline must match that capacity in order to keep share of the market. So that is the situation. I must say that after shouting with our members in a polite way for a couple of years, I've started to see different kind of approach. Etihad has started to make joint ventures with several other airlines, Jet Airways or Darwin or Air Berlin. Emirates has started to make code sharing with Qantas. So I think so that the worst is over. So as I'm optimistic, I think so that that is our only sin, step by step will disappear.
Tell me how you managed to get the airports to drop their fees.
You know, the airport was a tough job because when you deal with some monopoly suppliers, what is your strength? Zero. When I joined IATA, my first challenge, as I mentioned before, was to build a team. It took me 3 months to change. I changed, I would say, my management team in 3 months, and I made really a revolution in the system very, very quickly. I made some mistakes, hiring not always the right person, but I was very fast in changing and solving the problem. So once that you've made the structure, I had to show our members that we were delivering. The members want result. Result means numbers. Numbers means money. And so I said, okay, what is one of the biggest issues of the airline? The biggest issue of the airline is we have to deal with hundreds of airports in the world, and we are hostage of their fees. Our margin is 2%, I mentioned. The margins of our airports goes from 15 to 25%. Why? It's a monopoly. Every year you go there, you say, this is increased. You don't want? You don't fly. We don't have, we've been good in inventing electronic ticketing, but I was not good at inventing a way to give the passenger a paper ticket and a parachute saying you don't need an airport. You still need the airport to land. So it was a must to file the deal. And so I started to see what is the most tough airport in the world, with whom we are discussing. Toughest airport in the world was Narita. Narita is the main airport of Tokyo. And it was like this since years and years. And I asked